What's up, guys? Welcome to Fed by Fire. I'm Christian Whitlow. So, tonight we're going to be telling a story that I've been carrying around parts of for years, and I'm finally going to get to tell it the way it sits in my head. So, let's get into it. So, on April 4th, 2015, a small house in Ellet, Virginia, somewhere I used to frequently go on blunt rides as a teenager just outside of Christiansburg, 59-year-old Charles Taylor is sitting on his couch. His elderly bedridden father is in the next room when the door opens up and walks in two people, one being his former daughter-in-law, 24-year-old Amanda Taylor, and her friend Sean Ball. And what happens next is pure depravity. Amanda pulls out a bayonet-style knife and starts stabbing Charles over and over and over again. He reaches for the blade and Sean hits him in the head with a tire iron 5 or 6 times. Amanda keeps going, and by the time it ends, Charles has 31 stab wounds. Some of them went clean through his body, and 11 of them could have been fatal all by themselves. And when Charles is dead, Amanda does something that still stops people cold in their tracks today. She poses for a photo right next to his dead body, holding the bloody knife, and she's smiling in that picture. It gets shared and it ends up on a serial killer website. She posts about it, and she's proud about this whole ordeal. Then the two of them go for his wallet, lie to the old man in the other room, and say that they're taking Charles to the hospital, and they run. And that is when the crime media nicknamed her the Selfie Killer. But for me, this has always had some personal parallels to it that have always, stacking in a way that still feels unreal. So way back in the day, my dad was a maintenance man at these apartments called Old Farm Village, where Rex and his grandmother lived. My dad went way back with his family, supposedly. So when I was a kid, my dad, he won some tickets on the radio, and he takes me to my first real concert. And we go see Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie. And while we're standing in line, we see a couple, and both of them have huge gauges and covered in tattoos, but not like tattoos, like nice tattoos. And, we're standing there, and my dad and her, they talk for 45 minutes. We're waiting to get into the show. And I was just a kid. It was my first big concert. I was so excited about the music, the lights, the whole thing. I had no idea who this dude was or who this chick was. I had no idea who these people would one day become the center of one of the most cold-blooded cases to come out of our area. At the time, they were just a couple. Another thing I find crazy is when I met Rex that day, he was wearing a Green River Killer shirt and talking to my dad casually about how they had been writing letters back and forth with serial killers. I didn't know the names at the time. I just knew that, were intense. And years later, I would find out exactly who they were. And the memory of that night would just hit me completely different. Rex and Amanda, they shared the same birthday, March 27th, and they called it 327. It was their little thing. Also deep into serial killers and murder stories and the whole culture around it. Their relationship was rocky, and Rex had a serious problem with prescription pills. Amanda blamed his father for Charles for getting him started on them years earlier. In August 2014, Rex unalived himself in a shed on a family property. Charles was the one who found him, and Amanda never quite got over this. She decided Charles was responsible and that he needed to die. In the months after Rex's unaliving of himself, she did what any partner would do in that situation. She spiraled hard. There was a breakdown at his grave around his birthday. Her mother had called the police, and Amanda had ended up at St. Albans, the psychiatric facility in Radford, and she was there for a few days. Some of it court ordered, and people that knew her said that she hadn't been released, that she shouldn't have been released so soon. And I remember seeing that on the Facebook post, was a teenager. And when everything blew up, that just stuck with me, that if she would have been evaluated, wouldn't have let her go, maybe they could have stopped that from happening. But by early April 2015, she had a plan. She and Sean Ball bought the bayonet style knife. They had got some guns from Sean's family. They had talked about a bigger crime spree. On the afternoon of April 4th, they went to Charles's house, and Amanda chose the time carefully. 3:27 p.m., the numbers that shared their birthday, and she wanted it to be personal. She wanted him to know it was her, and she started stabbing him over and over while he was sitting on the couch. Like we said earlier, he fought back and grabbed for the knife, and Sean stepped in with the tire iron. They left him there, took the photo that would make the case famous. They fled south. Somewhere along the Blue Ridge Parkway, the partnership fell apart. Amanda said that Sean was lying, that he wouldn't shut up, that he was taking drugs. She stopped the vehicle, walked around to his side, and shot him in the face. The bullet went through his jaw. She thought that she had killed him. She even took a picture of his face because she didn't want to look at it directly. She left him on the side of the road for dead and kept going. But Sean survived, and he was found and recovered enough to talk. Amanda was stopped in North Carolina after police used spike strips. When detectives interviewed her, she was calm, almost casual. She waved her rights and waved them through the whole thing. She said that she killed Charlie at 3:27 on purpose. She said that she wanted to watch him die. She said the stabbing felt like her first roller coaster ride. Later, from prison, she would say the photo made her really happy and that she had absolutely no remorse, that she did exactly what she wanted to do. And she said, I just want him to feel the pain that I felt, that it was the most alive she ever felt since Rex died. She went to trial in November 2015. The defense didn't deny she did it whatsoever. They tried to frame it as justified by love and grief. The jury was out less than an hour, guilty of first-degree murder, and the judge sentenced her to life without parole and called her evil personified. Sean Ball eventually pleaded guilty and received a 60-year sentence with 41 years to serve. And that is the official story. Now, here is the part that keeps the case living in my own house years later. After the murder, my sister ended up in the same facility and spent months in solitary with Amanda. They developed a friendship. Amanda told her the reason that she shot Sean Ball in the face was that he just wouldn't shut the fuck up. My mother-in-law also did time with her and came away with the same impression that if Amanda ever got out, she would definitely kill again. No remorse, absolutely none. And the case has been brought up in my life over and over and over again. It was high profile around, my hometown. And the selfie, the flight, the cold waves about it. But one thing I feel like people don't talk about at the center of this story isn't the selfie or the knife or even the judge calling her evil. The real center of this is the children. Rex and had kids together, two of them. And when Rex, took his home, kids lost a father. And when Amanda walked into that living room with that knife and then went to prison the rest of her life, those kids lost a mother too. And, they were left mom and a dad. And that damage, that never the same way the photo does. Two kids who have to grow up now and all that wreckage, and all of that. I keep coming back to that concert when I was a kid. Seeing them at the Cooper and Rob Zombie concert was something that'll always stick with me. Just thinking, like, no idea. Like, the girl there wanted to become, involved in my area, turn a family tragedy into a national headline, and basically leave two children without either parents. And my dad's old connection to the family, I thought that was crazy, and how my sister spent months with her in solitary with, the woman who, my mother and me, that the fact that she had already been evaluated at St. Albans and walked free long enough to carry out the plan is another crazy detail. There is no neat ending here, though. Amanda Taylor is still serving her life sentence, where my mother-in-law was served her 5 years. The Fluvanna Correctional Center, Sean Ball is still locked up. And, Rex Charles Taylor's is gone, and the photo still exists on the internet. A permanent record, little remorse she felt in that moment. And those kids are still out there living with consequences and choices they never made. And that's the saddest part. I tell this story because it keeps finding its way back to me through family, through prison walls, through old memories that suddenly make sense. It is a reminder that some people can look you in the eye, talk for 45 minutes about nothing and everything, and years later do something so calculated and so empty of regret that the only honest word left for the judge to use is evil personified. That is the Selfie Killer case as I know it. The facts, the timeline, the strange personal threads that I've never. So as always, if you made it to this point in the video, like and subscribe. This has been Fed by Fire. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one.